do a, so we got enough people here. Yeah, in fact, I'm going to start recording right now just so everybody knows. I just want to say welcome to everybody to the latest talk of the Houston branch of HUXPA, the User Experience Professionals Association. I'm going to keep this super brief so we can just get right into the talk. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm super excited about this talk because this is a subject that I think is near and dear to all our hearts, but there's not a lot of information about this out there on how to actually deal with something like this. This talk is titled Stepping Out of the Cognitive Conga Line, How to Recognize and Counter Bias. Lexie Posada, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yep.
We'll be talking about how to address your own biases in research, how to approach research in a more scientifically objective way, and how to improve your UX process and projects in general. And just a little bit about Lexie. Lexie holds a PhD in Measurement, Quantitative Methods, and Learning Sciences from the University of Houston and had a master's in Educational Psychology. She's a data analysis wizard and has served as a lecturer at University of Houston before her present gig working with Chaya One, and also, as we just learned, teaching at community college as well, which is awesome. So Lexie's going to give a talk, and after that, we'll jump right into a Q&A. So Lexie, if you want to take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here. So hopefully I can live up to your high expectations for this, but if I don't address something that you're really curious about, please feel free during the Q&A to bring it up. So let's get to it. Here's just a little bit of an overview of what I'd like to go over. So I'll quickly define kind of what I feel like cognitive biases are, how people define them, talk a little bit about how I go about recognizing and countering them. And then I'm going to dive into 3 very specific examples of different cognitive biases and give a practical example of how to address that. There will be a little bit of a question, so if you want to pop it in the chat, your little answers, or just speak up, there'll be time for you to do that as well. And then we'll do a little recap and a Q&A. So again, I'm going to talk about a cognitive bias, how we're going to recognize them, and then go over those 3 specific examples. And I really want to bring into the practical nature of it because I tend to be very pragmatic, how it might come up in a daily situation, a research situation, and how I might try to combat it. So what are cognitive biases? What are all these things that we're dealing with, right? Well, a cognitive bias is, it's a systematic error in our thinking, right? It's when we're processing or interpreting information about the world around us, and it affects our decisions and then subsequently our judgments that we make. And they're not always necessarily a bad thing, right? So the human brain, it's wonderful, it is powerful, but it's also subject to its limitations, right? So these biases are a result of our brain's attempt to simplify this information processing. They're shortcuts, they're rules of thumb that help us make sense of the world and get to our decisions with more relative speed. It can help us find the commonalities, the shortcuts, just simply make things easier so we can navigate our world. Now, sometimes it makes our thinking and decision-making faster, and it is all right. Because we're not having to consider all the information. If you had to really take in every little bit of data that your brain is processing, you'd be pretty slow to make any kind of a decision. But sometimes these cognitive biases can lead to errors for exactly the same reasons, for taking those shortcuts. Some of these biases may be related to memory. They can lead to biased thinking, decision-making. There's numbers of reasons why these might happen. There might also be some attention issues. So if our attention is limited, because obviously it's a limited resource, we can be selective about what we're paying attention to in our world around us. And again, subtle biases start to creep in and influence the way we think and see the world. So generally, cognitive biases are these shortcuts that occur with our processing, interpreting of the world, and really that can affect the decisions and then subsequent judgments that we make. So here's just a really cute UX sketch. There's this artist, I think her name is Kristen, and I can't pronounce her last name, but I do link her in my references section. She does a lot of these great UX sketches. I really advise that you check them out. She's got great ones for interviews, observations, just great ones. But I wanted to highlight this one because it's about cognitive bias, right? Again, it'll give you a little definition about cognitive biases, how they affect the way we think and how maybe you can use them to improve the UX that you're doing, but also maybe how in a negative aspect they can affect the way that our users are thinking. So now I want to get into a little bit about how to recognize these biases, and then I'll get into how to counter them. So everyone exhibits cognitive biases. None of us are immune to it. And it's might be easier to see when others are doing it. But it's really important to know that it's something that also affects your thinking, my thinking, all of our thinking. And some signs that you might be influenced by some type of cognitive bias are perhaps only paying attention to news stories that confirm your opinions, not taking in all perspectives, blaming outside factors when things don't go our way, attributing others people's successes or failures to luck or persecution, right? Or taking personal credit for our own accomplishments without considering other factors that might have gone into it, assuming that we all share the same beliefs or opinions, learning just a tad bit about a topic and assuming you know everything about it. I'm sure we've all met our Facebook aunts and uncles who are research scientists just by reading an article. And also thinking that when I make a judgment or decision, that I am completely objective and logical and capable of taking in all that information. Biases creep in, they trip us up, and they will lead us to make poor decisions. So the very first step on how to recognize that you have cognitive biases is to admit and self-reflect that we all have cognitive biases, no matter who you are, right? They exist, and I have them. And the challenging part here is really to take action, right? It's like, okay, oh, we need to challenge ourselves and say, look, I have these cognitive biases. I may not know what they are at this point, but I know that they exist, and I'm going to be more diligent about recognizing them when I make decisions, right? So just taking that. So we all have them. They're part of what makes us human. It's how our brain's designed to work. It's nothing to be ashamed of, right? But it's very common for us to suffer from the blind spot bias and of thinking, I don't really have them, right? But just that acknowledging that we do have them would be the very first step. Another step and recognize those biases would be to take in information from all perspectives, right? Understand that there are different viewpoints and try to take in viewpoints that are very counter to what you believe so that you can take in all information and understand what's going on. I'll talk about some more specific ways to counter very specific biases in my next few slides. So the few examples that I'm going to get into today are the social desirability bias, framing effect, and confirmation bias. And I chose these three because I had immediate examples of how they might occur and how I've seen them occur in my daily work and work with my colleagues and also work with clients. So as you know, and I link them again in my references, there are tons of cognitive biases out there. There's a really cool design codex of all of them that somebody like mapped out. I link it in my last one of my last slides, so I really recommend you check it out. But so we'll get started with the social desirability bias. So what is this bias, right? Well, in social science, social desirability bias is that type of response bias where there's a tendency for respondents, participants to answer in a way that they'll be viewed favorably, right? It can take the form of over-reporting good behavior, under-reporting bad behavior, skirting around the issue, not really wanting to talking about it. How many times have you been in an interview situation where, no, everything's fine? An observation, well, this is how we always do it, it's okay. Or no, we do it perfectly here, everything is great. Or in surveys where you're just not seeing the data that you need to see, right? You have observed these issues, you know what's going on, but the data's not backing it up. Well, part of that might be to social desirability bias. It's really hard for us to be viewed unfavorably. We want to be liked. We want people to perceive us as somebody who agrees with other people and that says good things. So how might we counter this? So I don't know. This comic cracked me up. Um, but so one way that I might counter this is a couple different ways, and it depends, of course, on the methods you're doing, but these are some sort of general ways that I would counter it. So a big one, assure participants, whether it's a survey, an interview, a usability test, any kind of interaction, that their data will remain confidential and anonymous. And I caution, make sure you can make this claim, because I've had in the past some clients, well, we want everything attached to a name, and I want to know who said this, and I want to have recordings. And I always say, we can de-identify the data for you, so you can have like transcripts, or you can have the sort of summarized aggregated data, but I never want to tie a participant's name to their specific data, because I want to make the claim that your data will remain confidential and anonymous. And sometimes I add the kicker of from outside of the project team, right? Because you obviously do have to share with like your PM, your other researchers, your designers, your tech team. Like you might need to share some of these details, but I always try to de-identify the data at every single, because it really, for me, it usually doesn't need to have their name attached. So that is the biggest one, by assuring them that, hey, nobody's going to know this is you. This is completely between us and the project team. Your name isn't going to be connected to the specific data. I aggregate it, letting them know that. It's like, oh, because how easy is it to leave an anonymous comment on some website review, as opposed to if you're posting that on Facebook, right? If I can be anonymous, I'm more likely to speak my true feelings. Also, keeping the purpose of the research general, right? I take a lot of this from like my academic research, where you may not be telling them your specific hypotheses, all the things you're looking at. If you're looking at, maybe you're looking at some more taboo behaviors like drug use or sexual behaviors in college students, right? You might just generally say you're looking at different lifestyles of college students, things that they do or don't do, just to get a better picture or an idea of the college student behaviors, or what's really happening, as opposed to saying, well, we're looking to see if drug use is related to sexual behavior or vice versa. Keep it general, truthful, but general. Again, reinforce that there are no right or wrong answers. You're there for their honest feedback, their honest opinions. Stressing that really can help put a participant at ease. I'm thinking like a usability session, right? People always really tense up. I don't want to break it. I don't want to do the wrong thing. Hey, there are no right or wrong answers. We're here to test the system, not you, and just want your honest feedback, right? Assuring them that they're not going to mess it up, that there are no right or wrong answers, that it's not a reflection on them, can really help them be more honest about what they say, think, and feel. And then sort of my final advice on the social desirability bias is avoiding those leading questions and statements. So that's why I really like this comment, right? Because it's a chicken coming to your door and he's only giving you two options. So, and he's using language like suffer and die and become a nugget, right? Those kind of things, if I tell you, well, how much did you like this system? How much did you think it was really great, right? Things like that. Well, obviously it was really great, right? So how do you feel about this on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is this, 10 is this, right? I've given them no indication of how I want them to feel, just how do you feel, right? I avoid leading questions or statements because you don't want to make them, well, I have to answer this way or the other way. No, just give me your honest feedback. How do you feel, right? So these are some of the ways that I have tried to combat this bias in my work. And I will give you a very specific example, almost a case study. So you're going to your usability session and got your third user of the day, right? We've all been in those situations, could be the fifth, sixth, seventh user of the day. And obviously it's a small office, so they've been coming in and out and they're all talking about what they're going to get to do today, right? And during the session, they keep asking how the other people did. Well, what did they pick? Well, how did they respond? What did they want to do? Because again, they're afraid. And this is assuming I've already given my spiel about there's no right or wrong answers. But they're afraid of making the wrong choices and messing this project up because they've heard around the office that, they put a lot of money into this. They want to make sure it works and they don't want to see any problems with it. But somehow we were able to come in and do a UT test to really, somebody asked for it. how do I respond to that user? Knowing I'm trying to combat that social desirability bias, how would you combat that? How do you respond? And this is an open question, so I'm going to try and pull up the chat, and hopefully that won't mess up any of my screens. I don't know if I can get to the chat. Oh, look, there is a chat. Oh, there it goes. Yay. Okay. Any responses? Or if you're a more vocal person, feel free to pipe in. But how should I respond to the user who's really afraid of messing up? He or she keeps asking me about how the others did, what the choices they made. Ooh, okay. I'm seeing some responses now. We care about your opinion. They did what you're about to do. Anyone else? How might you respond? Not as fast.
We had something like this at one point. We told them that you're testing us. We're not really testing you.
Oh, I like that.
And it's really, we're trying to see if we're serving you in the way we intend to. So.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. And again, I would try to calm them, reassure them that, hey, it doesn't matter what they did. We want to see your honest feedback. We need to learn from you because you may catch something that they didn't, right? So please, I'll try to answer your questions at the end, but remember there are no right or wrong answers. So just show me how you would do this. What makes most sense to you? And again, yeah, putting it back onto them. There's no right or wrong answers, letting them know it's not a test. It's not a review of your performance or anything. We need to we need to teach them how, we need to test the system, not them. Like, do it that way. Okay, so there's my social desirability one. And now I'm gonna hop over to framing effect. So this one is always really interesting to me because I think of when I'm at the store, right? Like when I'm buying things. Well, now it's like when I'm buying things online because I don't go to grocery stores anymore. But so what is the framing effect? Well, this is the bias where how we decide based on our options, right? Whether they present positive or negative connotations. Now, this can be a benefit thing. We want to present things with positive connotations because we want people to choose that and avoid doing it as negative ones. But basically, people tend to avoid risk when a positive frame is presented, but they seek risk when a negative frame is presented. And there's all the research of why that works, Kahneman and Tversky. But basically, it's important because the way that things are framed impacts our lives. Shedding a positive light on poor information or lesser options, it can impair our decision making. We might overvalue something, framing, and can cause us to undervalue what is being said, right? Which is actually more important. We can choose worse options that are more effectively framed over better options because that information is framed badly, right? I'm trying to think of all the times that like our nutrition labels are horrible here in the US. Like we don't, like with our serving sizes and things like that, oh, this is only 90 calories per serving, but it's like 5 servings in a bin. Like I'm choosing this horrible snack because it's framed positively, but it's not a good choice for me, right? So just being aware of this, it can be harnessed to our advantage, but we also want to be careful that we don't do this incorrectly and end up making things worse for ourselves, right? So how to counter it? So I think the biggest thing we can do here, really, when we approach decision making, is to be more involved with the problem at hand and think through those choices carefully. Well, this one says half full, this one says half empty. What does that actually mean? Well, this one has half water, this one has half water. Oh, well, they're both the same thing. I can make that comparison. Also providing rationales for our choices. And we can have our users do this as well to better understand and make sure that there hasn't been a framing effect. Well, why did you choose that? Well, I chose this one because I liked the way that it was worded. Oh, okay. Or actually, I chose this one because mathematically, it's more than the other one. So, and then when we're doing that for ourselves, we can kind of catch ourselves of, wait, does that make sense? No, mathematically, they're both 50%. That wouldn't make sense. And then again, when we're interacting with users, avoiding those leading and indicative ways or questionings when we want to get those non-biased answers, right? So this one is kind of a tricky one because it can both apply to the way we interpret information, but when we're also working with our users, we want to be careful with. And my favorite one, because it's researchy, is to counterbalance the options when presenting users with choices, right? So if we're doing like A/B testing, we're testing two different things or two different versions of something, you know, we may want to counterbalance those, because then it's not like, oh, well, this one was first and it was, you know, it just was so great. And then this other one just looks like, don't really like that one, or vice versa, right? Throwing off how people are perceiving things because they're comparing it the way it was framed, first, second, in comparison to one that was better or one that was worse in their mind. So those are some of the ways that I might combat the framing effect. And again, my practical example, trying to be very pragmatic. So I'm doing a design review session, right? And I have two different versions, two different visual directions that I'm going to be showing to 10 different users. And my goal is to understand which version better suits their needs, right? So maybe have a little bit difference. They function a little bit differently. Maybe one just really stands out, but I want their honest feedback. What are 2 or 3 things I can do to minimize the framing effect in this situation? You can put it in the chat or you can speak up. So I'm seeing some suggestions for randomizing the order in which I show with people. Okay. Other suggestions? Clues, I gave it to you on the other page. Oh, I like that, neutral labeling. Yeah, definitely. And I assume that means like the designs, version A, version B, or even like version 1, version 2. Show them both and ask them how they feel differently. So like a direct comparison, let's look at these two. Oh, colors, I like that even better. Colors, so not to imply a rank. So like maybe a blue versus a green. I'm not a color theorist, so I wouldn't really know, but blue and green seem compatible and not at edge with each other. Or purple and blue, maybe. I really like purple. Okay, yeah, so definitely, like going back to there, I would have them provide rationales. Why do you think this one's better? Why is your rating for that? Why? Keep everything very neutral with the labeling, the versions, counterbalancing, randomizing the order, definitely. Awesome, okay. And my favorite, confirmation bias, because it is everywhere, especially nowadays. Basically, this one is how we interpret new information or evidence as a confirmation of our own existing beliefs or theories. We tend to favor that information that is confirmed by our theories. It just fits nicely. It just assimilates into what we already know, and we like it that way. So we tend to see those things more clearly. So how am I going to counter that? I have 3 tips for you. Basically, review all the information, avoid jumping to conclusions. Look at all different perspectives. Look at all the articles, what is being said. And just because you read 3 that all say the same thing doesn't mean that's what's completely going on, right? This is a hard one, but try to brainstorm 3 hypotheses for the conflicting information. Why else might that be happening other than what you think, right? Forcing you to go outside of the box and go into a different perspective, step in someone else's shoes, take a conflicting viewpoint. And then the third one kind of follows up on that. Try to just confirm your findings. Purposely seek out information that would discredit use authentic, verifiable evidence that would just confirm your findings, right? There's this one article that says this, and there's another article that says this. I cannot tell you how many times in grad school they made us read 2 conflicting articles where it's like basically 18th century back and forth, writing each other all these messages. But basically one author is saying, well, I just confirm your findings by this study and this study. And so try to seek out all the information, try to disconfirm your findings and be open to that information. And that's sort of some of the best tips I've come across for getting rid of that confirmation bias. Now my practical example, which I will be asking the questions again. So I've interviewed a set of users, you know, it could be like 15 different people, right? But I have a few more left that I have to do this week. And after the initial interviews, I have a working theory about what's going on, what are the problems, and you're operating from the same list of questions. You know, I got the same list of 10 questions. It's taking me an hour. I just want to jump to the ones I already know that are going to give me the information I need, right? They've been talking about this problem with their process, and instead of talking about all the people and the tools, I'm just going to jump straight to the questions in the process. Can I go ahead and do this and save myself and the user some time, right? Everybody's really busy. This is already like my 16th interview of the week. Is that okay? Can you give me a recommendation? Okay, I'll open it up to the chat. And so if it's a yes or no, I'd like a reason why. So can I go ahead and just skip to the questions I need, save them time, save me time, since I already have a working theory? Ooh, everybody's got an opinion. I love this. No, because I might miss a perspective that's different from the others. Follow the script, stay on script so I can be comparative apples to apples. I'm making conclusions based on what I already think I know. It's important to ask the questions everyone the same way. I was told to do research until you're learning nothing new. Very good. My follow-up to that is, when do you know you're not learning anything new? Don't do it. Could be used for other answers, give more context. Oh, okay. Yeah, this one I purposely made like this. I was hoping somebody would pick up on that. I'm glad somebody did. High probability conflicting opinion might exist in the rain opinion. Yeah, so I'm glad everybody has mostly, pick up on the fact that this was a very biased way to ask this question. I was looking, you know, to use my powers for evil and social desirability bias you into giving me a no. But yeah, so I do want to follow up with Renee about this. So, because I hear that you would stop altogether after that. That's really interesting. I was told to do research until you learn nothing new. That's an interesting perspective and guidance to be given. So I know a lot of the times, you know, I get tired and I'm like, I know what I'm going and I know I should just ask these questions, and we feel like we just want to cut. But like all the majority of the advice that's being given to me here, no, you really shouldn't. If you have a set of 30 interviews, even at number 16, 17, 18, 19, right, on and on and on, 29, 30, you should ask the same set of questions, because you never know when you will learn that something new. It could be the last 3 people that have these like edge cases that have all this really good information, or that totally shine a light and give you context. Because if I do and I kind of shortcut myself on those questions in that script, what I'm doing is I'm falling into my confirmation bias trap. I know what's going on. That's cool. This is a theory, but I haven't given myself to have all the data. Now we can get into a whole debate of like, is that 30 people representative, and am I missing anything else? And we could be. We have no idea. But those are the 30 people that I'm given. I need to give them my due diligence and challenge my own beliefs, because if I start biasing and only asking the questions that I want to ask and not the ones that we had agreed to from the very beginning, oh yeah, this doesn't mean you can't not jump around. Yeah, no. You can jump around in your script. That's very natural to follow the flow of the conversation. That's sort of gosh, I'm losing the name of it. It's sort of unstructured, and that's fine too. But making sure that you ask all the questions with time permitting, right? Make sure we're being more objective. Not saying, not going to ask those questions because they don't matter. Oh, that is a great question. If there's an equivalent to medical study, stopping the study early because of clear harm or clear benefit before the study is complete. That is scary, Ron. And I would hope that if it's clear, they keep doing it and keep testing, and there's constant testing to make sure everything is okay. That is a really great question, but also very scary. So yes, the big consensus on this is don't stop, get all the questions. Yes, it's okay to skip around, right? But to follow the flow of the conversation, but try to address them all, and don't do it because you're trying to save time or anything like that, or you think you know what's going on. Give them all the questions that you had at first set out to discuss. So now I'm going to get to my recap. So we talked about what cognitive biases are, right? Those systematic errors in our thinking, those shortcuts, not always bad, not always good. We talked about recognizing them by first just being aware, learning about them, challenging our beliefs, along with some specific ways to counter these 3 specific biases. And then I also try to give some practical knowledge by giving some real life situations, things that I have encountered, little case studies for us. So I wanted to leave you with these resources. So I'll send this PDF out to Liz, and we can email it out to people interested. But these are really great resources that I found, that I've read, that have helped me construct this presentation. Here's Christina, cannot say her last name, I'm so sorry. She's got a great set of UX sketches on cognitive bias, as well as other UX methods. I really recommend you check them out. How to avoid biases, this really cool codex on the cognitive biases, that whole infographic, it's beautiful. There's also these really cool cognitive bias UX cards that I found interesting. I didn't like put any of them in the presentation, but like I really think they're cool because they can be used as games, icebreakers, or just about learning. And so I thought they were really, really cool. So I encourage you to check all those out in your leisure, learn a little bit more about cognitive biases. And now, because I wanted to leave plenty of time for Q&A, and I know we all have busy, busy lives, I'm going to open it up to questions. Please feel free to do it in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can watch the chat a little bit more effectively and hear any questions that we may have. So, I got my first question. If you're working with a team member or a manager who doesn't seem to know how to acknowledge or combat their inner biases, how can you ensure that it doesn't carry over into the work without creating tension or overstepping like personal boundaries? That is a wonderful question. Let me take a minute on that. So that's really hard because I think that, at least in our practice at Chai One, we try to all be very open about giving each other feedback. So I think one thing might be to create a culture of feedback. So even if you're not calling them out for being biased, perhaps you can make comments on what they're presenting. Like, hey, this question seems maybe a little leading. Is there something that we can change it to? Or maybe I consider rewording it like that. I know that I've myself had to be told, hey, maybe can we fix it like this because it does seem a little leading, and I've had to give that feedback to others. So I think trying to be a little more indirect about it, giving feedback on things might be one way to do it on their work, if that's something you can do. And that would be how I would handle it. Okay, let's see. What about on the user end? What do you advise participants in terms of getting past their biases, or do you just embrace them as part of your testing? I embrace them as part of my testing. I want to see their complete natural reaction, because we cannot assume that people will get rid of biases willy-nilly, right? We are testing them to see how they operate in their normal environment. So again, I stress whatever makes sense to you. How would you expect it to work? What do you think it does? What would you like it to do? Always leaning on them, because it'd be cool if I could get rid of everyone's biases, but that's not going to work. Good question. Other questions? And don't feel free, like, you have to type it in the chat. Please feel free to just speak out.
Hey, Lexie. This is Alok here.
Yeah.
So I have a question. What are some icebreaker questions you could ask your your user to kind of loosen them up before you sink your teeth in?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So if we're doing a design session or a usability session, somewhere one-on-one, or even an interview, an online phone interview, I always kind of just ask them how they're doing. Hey, how's your day going? And I try to bring in relevant topics. And that's something that I've had to work on, because I'm a major introvert. I don't like talking to people at all. And the fact that this is virtual is one of the reasons I'm doing it, because it's so much easier to do because I'm talking to myself, right? So I always just ask them a question. How's it going? Oh, how's it been? Like, if I've heard that they mention kids, I always bring up, oh, how's the school year going? How's that going? If they have pets or they've mentioned they have pets, I always talk about my dogs, right? I try to find some sort of commonality that I can talk and feel comfortable talking about. So that usually revolves around my kid, my dogs, or something I'm interested in. And usually I just kind of talk about, hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, the weather is hot. Texas is rough, right? You know, I've been here all my life and it's still really rough. So just finding little topics to kind of connect with can really put them at ease. And then I go into my whole spiel and I tell them that. I kind of loosen it up of like, okay, we're going to start now. I'm going to give you my spiel. Are you good? Okay. And then I go through my little very robotic spiel. So it's very formal and objective. But I think just giving those conversational 1 to 2 minutes is really helpful.
Got it. Thank you, Lexie.
Yes. Another question here. How can you ensure that you have enough diversity in your testing population? Is randomization better than manufacturer diversity? So this is a problem that I assume that we all kind of have. But so the way that our projects work, we are given people. People are assigned to come participate to us. I don't really have much say in, hey, I need all these people. The biggest amount of control I do have is saying I need people from these departments or these roles. And so I try to get from my existing documentation, from my stakeholder workshop, understanding the roles, I try to collect all that information up front so I can at least say, hey, I need X number, like 5 engineers, 5 supervisors, 5 field engineers. Like I try to get a set number of the roles or departments, depending how the project's structured. And that's about as much control as I have of the diversity. So, next question. Companies tend to see those cognitive bias issues almost as negative individuals. Positivity and product initiative success tend to be the preferred outlook. Any recommendations to seed with a cognitive bias perspective? So is this saying that when we want to take advantage of cognitive biases, could you explain your question a little bit more?
Yeah, I guess I'm saying, you know, we're being, especially in the UX field, we're kind of trained to be really sensitive to cognitive bias and making sure that everything we do is done correctly. Well, in a corporate environment, there tends to be almost a push to be accepting of almost like cognitive bias is something that they would prefer if it leads to the response you want. So you know, sometimes trying to push this kind of angle of thinking can lead with a lot of pushback, maybe almost subconsciously, like this guy's always questioning why, you know, how we do this. So I'm just wondering how, if there's any tips for how you can be in a corporate environment with this very almost questioning, you know, how we make decisions, how we view results, without coming across too much as somebody who's always questioning and has almost a negative attitude towards product success, for example.
Oh yeah, that is a great question. We are kind of always on the outs, the questioners, aren't we? So one of the ways that I combat that is really trying to be an integral part of the team. So just recently in a current project that I'm working on, I brought up again the prospect of usability testing. And I'm getting pushback. I'm always getting pushback. And today I made a little headway. But I think I got further today than I have in the past because in the past few weeks, I've been trying to be a very helpful member of the team, trying to make their lives easier with my recommendations, my suggestions, always trying to come from the perspective of, hey, how about this? Would this be a little bit helpful, a little bit easier? Giving where necessary. So yeah, I don't think that's as big of a usability issue. We could probably push that for a bit later, obviously using my judgment of like what to push back on and whatnot. And I think that's been one. So just a personal, making myself part of the team and not trying to come across as always the one that's questioner, so that once I do get into those situations, I'm not seen so much of as like, gosh, this is the person who's always being the prickly pear, right? And then also trying to think of reframing it, right? Of instead of why am I doing it this way? Why am I recommending this way? How will this help the user? How will this help the product in the end? Like I'm challenging this because I think if we did it this way, that could actually make us more successful, right? As opposed to this or that. But again, that's my personal approach. I'm not sure if it would work for everybody, but it's some things that I found to be a little bit more successful, focusing on trying to align on what are they finding successful? How can I reframe my goals with theirs? So for my usability testing, I'm trying to give you more data so that you have evidence to go up to the dev team and say, this is a higher priority than this. I'm trying to make your job easier by doing that. Of course, probably in much more fleshed out, nicer words, but basically that's what I'm trying to do with my usability testing. I'm trying to give you the data so you can make those decisions about the product and make it easier on you. I'm trying to provide that for you. So that's just how I kind of frame things so that I'm less of that negative Nancy and more of that, like, I'm just trying to help you. So I'm not sure if that's the answer you were looking for, but that's how I've approached those problems in the past.
No, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. What types of post-analyses do you perform on data to identify possible biases, especially if you're giving participants? Ooh, that's lovely. So not something that I've had to do in the past because I don't usually get big data. I would love big data because I'm a big data nerd, as you probably can tell from my degree. But some things that I might suggest are between groups analyses, looking at if different groups respond differently. Did I counterbalance things? Are there differences between the versions and why might those be? What are those differences on? So I've not had to do them in the past, but those are some areas that I might start. I think somebody was trying to give me a question. Do you think there's any cognitive bias, and how likely would you recommend this product to a friend type surveys that tend to be popular in the marketing circles right now? Totally. But don't quote me on that. Oh my gosh, this is recorded. I think so too. I tend to be someone is, how do you feel? I try to just truncate it there. I don't even like, how frustrated did you feel? I personally don't like those questions. How do you feel on a scale of blank? And then you get the anchors with the labels, not at all frustrated and frustrated, because that to me seems as less biased as I can be, right? Because I'm not telling you not at all recommend, like, just how do you feel? Just how do you generally feel? So yeah, I'm definitely on the train that that's pretty biased, but that's just me, my personal opinion. Have you been involved in a project utilizing machine learning? Wonder if it's a good line of questioning in this topic. Oh, unfortunately, I have not in my work or experience, but that would be really cool to do in the future. Other questions? I'm so much better with questions than talking to people. And I'm so glad there's only like 3 faces. It makes it so much easier.
I have to turn the camera on now.
Oh no.
No, I can respond to David of just kind of that question about the negative impact of bias. One thing I do at the HP unit I'm at now is I approach it. Everybody has a deadline, right? And they've already committed to it before they brought in UX. So I just preface it with, I'm not trying to be a cowboy. I'll help you meet your goal. But during that, we're going to educate you slowly during this until we can do it the right way from the outset. And the right way meaning like just get us involved at the beginning versus you're 70% done at this point. But just slowly, as Lexie said, just piece in little things.
If you were advising a large-scale political campaign on conducting an accurate assessment of their candidate, what approach would you tell them to take? What research methods? Oh my goodness, I feel like I'm being on the spot here. Well, I'm not a political researcher, but oh gosh, I mean, maybe what they're doing now, surveys, focus groups, but you know, those are pretty general marketing ones I think that they do. I don't know what I would do as a, gosh, I like scandal. Like that's pretty much my enthusiasm for getting into the politics because real life is scary. I do vote though. I vote all the time. Like vote, local elections, everything I vote. But
I feel like the campaigns need you, like because you've got a command over data analysis. So
I know, right? But like, no, couldn't do it for that. Nope. I'm not going to do that. Education, nonprofits. I'm here for you.
What about phone surveys versus postal mailers?
Oh gosh, especially with the UPS these days. I mean, USPS, I've had something that was mailed at the beginning of August for priority mail that I still haven't got. Like it was like the 2-day priority mail. It's still not here. So I don't know.
Very
I
true.
don't know. Let's see. Okay, yes, it is being recorded. I'm forever immortalized in this. Okay, great. Any other questions? I'm always available for questions. You can always reach out to me at lexie@chai1.com. I love questions. I'm a big data nerd. I do a lot of side data analysis for people in their projects. I just learned about this volunteer thing that you can do apparently to volunteer services from a site called Catchfire. So I'm going to try and do some of that just because I love data. I'm a big nerd. But that's really all I got, guys. And I really thank you so much for joining me today. I'll give you some of your precious evening back. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. And stay safe, mask up.
Thanks a lot, Lexie. That was awesome. And definitely thanks to all the participants that that came in. And just to close it up, yeah, we did record this and it'll be up on the YouTube channel in a day or so for anybody who missed the beginning or wants to share it with any friends.
Yes, please find us on YouTube. Just look for HUXPA or Houston UXPA. Like and subscribe, as the kids say.
Right? Where am I supposed to point?
Yeah. As far as the deck presented, we'll figure out the best way to distribute that.
You could I can put my email here if you really want it and hit me up.
Because we certainly can post it in Slack.
Oh, you can do it in Slack? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can also, I'm not sure about YouTube because I'm apparently out of the YouTube age bracket. But I think we can post it under the video as well. We'll find out. Maybe someone younger than me can answer that.
Yeah, and if we do post it on Slack, I would just say, I imagine we have a link to our Slack channel through the Meetup page. So most people probably have access to the page here.
Yes.
Can I drop it in this presentation? Can I do that?
Yeah, you could post it. You can post it
in the chat.
I'm not sure if it will take files.
Yeah, let's experiment live on that.
All right, let's see what it does. I just dropped it there. I don't know if it did anything.
Erica, let me check the link you posted and find out. Yep, that's us. So yes, the link you posted.
No, you can't upload. You cannot upload.
Yeah. The link to the YouTube channel is in the chat right now, though. So,
okay.
Yep,
Well, I'll send it to you, Liz, for sure, and then we can figure out where else to put it.
Yeah, we can actually for sure post things under the event on Meetup as well. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah, we will. So yeah, folks, join the Slack group, post things, and say hi.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Thank you. Bye.